Hello, everyone. Welcome to this next session of the ConV2X Symposium with regards to building tokenomics and building stakeholder support for new technologies. My name is Jim St. Clair. I'm your moderator for today, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my fellow panelists as explore these topics and use cases with the use of new technologies and distributed ledgers. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Stefan to introduce himself and pass it around to our other panelists and begin our discussion today.
Thank you so much, Jim. My name is Stefan Manorik, and I'm a Samaman community lead at the house. And I'm very honored to join today the panel discussion and delve deeper into our topic. Thank you. And in the house, mostly, I am responsible about building a community, about like building a bridge between the house development and our users, our community communication with our potential partners, and building a partnership with the world, I'd say. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. Igor, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Really happy to be here. My name is Igor Korolev. I'm a physician neuroscientist by training with background in digital health, data science, and clinical research. And I'm passionate about using science and technology to improve healthcare and health outcomes.
Welcome. Thank you very much. And Artie?
Thanks so much for having me. Happy Thursday here. And my name is Artie Ariyampur, CEO and founder of Seekster. We pioneered the longitudinal health record. We put the person at the center of healthcare to bring together all their siloed data into one form. Excited to be here and having the discussion with all you guys.
Yes, excellent. Thank you. And it's exciting to be with all of you. As I mentioned, the topic is around tokenomics, building stakeholder support, new technologies, et cetera, et cetera. I personally think that what we're really getting into is, that next generation, that next frontier between the old days when things were on a server under your desk, and then the migrations into networks and utility computing, and then finally into cloud and virtual data storage. And now, of course, the implications of data and data storage and tokenomics. So it would be great to get your feedback just on the thoughts of how has that data storage changed, and how is this connecting new ecosystems for use and consideration with economic incentives?
Speaking of the house, regarding this question, I'd like to note that in the house, data storage is like the main topic, I'd say. Our data storage isn't just about saving information. It's more about creating a kind of unbreakable world for health data. Like we have Health ID, which acts like a global health passport where everyone can securely have their own health, lifestyle, and the medical information. So you have it all the time with you. So we create and our vision is to give our users global health passport. That's what the health do in terms of our company.
So in terms of that health passport concept, do we as a panel feel that represents new ways to both store and manage data? Does it change the way the ecosystem has been historically put? And of course, as many of our attendees know, healthcare is very centralized in its governance and its strategy, and how the patient has been involved with that has changed over time. Are there any thoughts to what that means in that passport, that storage type concept?
So
go on.
Jim, you mentioned it's centralized, but I think there are only certain aspects of healthcare that are centralized. For example, I'm most familiar with the U.S. healthcare system. The U.S. healthcare system, I would say, is other than maybe what kind of Medicare and Medicaid does, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, is not as very centralized. It's actually very siloed. There are a lot of stakeholders in healthcare, from pharma and biotech to health systems to insurance companies, patients, many different stakeholders, and the data is quite siloed. And we've been the High Tech Act of 2009 was sort of the catalyst for requiring use of electronic health records in the US. And, we've been saying that the industry, the field has been saying for the past, now it's 14 years that there's going to be data interoperability. We're still not there. There's still quite a lot about to do for data interoperability, making sure that different stakeholders and systems work together, making sure that patients have timely access to their data. So it probably, whether health data is centralized or siloed probably highly depends on the country you're talking about.
Yeah, I'd like to actually add to that too, echoing some of the things that Igor just mentioned. Healthcare data is very complex, actually, number one. And it is, it's not about it being centralized or not centralized. I think that was kind of yesterday's discussion. Today's discussion is more around, and I'm not talking about today's discussion on this panel, just today's discussion in the marketplace, whether you're talking to pharma companies, biotech companies, payers, providers, patients, the 5 Ps as I call them. Those guys all want the same thing. They want a clean way of actually digesting data. And then when you bring in all the AI hype, AI has really no value unless you have high quality, high fidelity data. And so, when we founded Seekster in 2016, it was all about seeking health data. And it was around interoperability, but we didn't know how complex the interoperability of just one system in Northern Kaiser to Southern Kaiser that runs on the same Epic, type of EMR is, because your name can be characterized differently. Not even thinking about the analytes such as like vitamin D that are characterized, or vitamin K, in 40 different ways. So the problem with this has been archaic in the systems, and the 21st Century Cures Act that was passed was all about patient access to data. And the key thing there, since Seekster and our founding team were working with the last administration with Seema Verma and Don Rucker that were running ONC, we learned a lot about the fact that patients not only want access to their data, but they want actually ownership to their data so that they can share it in a, easy formatable way, whether that's for a clinical trial, whether that's for a provider or a specialist to get some sort of intervention, or whether it's just, you're a caregiver and you want to share, mom's data with your sister who lives across the country during the pandemic. And so many different use cases came upon that. And interoperability, I would say, is like cancer. It actually gets more entangled every day, not because, the US or outside the US want it to be that way, but more data makes interoperability actually harder because more people are seeing doctor visits and more people are running clinical trials every single minute. Just in this discussion, interoperability grew by probably $100 million because it's a 35, billion plus ballooning annual problem. And those are McKinsey's estimates. I think it's actually a lot more. So it's really interesting where we've come from to where, we are, to how we can all solve this problem through the patient.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think the point about interoperability and the increasing amount of data and data provenance is a challenge as well. Are there other thoughts here about data provenance and how that relates back to storage, which I think provenance and storage are underpinnings to, where tokenomics might come in before even breaching that? Would love others' thoughts too as well.
Yeah, I would say that we would probably have to talk a little bit about the privacy and transparency of data when you're thinking about what you just stated, Jim. And, there's only so many different ways that you can actually make data private and transparent to both users, members, patients, providers, researchers, whoever those, folks are that are going to be either looking at identifiable data or de-identified data. But I think the future really is converging identifiable and de-identified data. And, blockchain has been around for quite some time. To be honest, I've never seen blockchain really work at scale in healthcare. I think on paper, it makes sense because of the security and privacy and how you can encrypt data in certain pockets and then, offload them the same way that, people are doing, cryptocurrency and finance in fintech with blockchain. In healthcare, people have tried to do the same thing. It's just that the use cases have to drive that. And at the end of the day, who's going to pay for it? Number one. Who's going to have access to it? Number two. And then number three is how is it actually going to be delivered, right? And so you have to have actually access, then ownership, then you can actually think about all these other technologies such as blockchain and AI and, LLMs and things like that, that everyone is talking about that layers over that high quality, high fidelity data. But if you don't have access and ownership to the data, the rest of the discussion kind of goes away.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stefan, I know you've got some experience in blockchain and healthcare as well. I think that Artie brings up some great points about challenges with scalability and related back to it. What are some of the things that you've encountered in that regard?
Exactly, you're totally right. Our the health ID, your health passport, is built exactly on the health blockchain. Built on blockchain technology, it ensures everyone that medical data remains private, tamper-proof, and secure. Like each person's health data is spread across our own secure network, which minimize the risk of unauthorized access, of course, and keeps records safe from breaches. Data fortress we create offers kind of peace of mind, I'd say, but that your personal health information is kept safe, is confidential. And the point is that it's always being easily accessible when needed. And in terms of security, this transparent sharing process is underpinned by the principles of GDPR and IHPAA, ensuring privacy. And in terms of collaboration between medical institutions and our partners, this collaboration contributes to advancing medical knowledge, expanding also drug discovery, enables development of innovative healthcare solutions that just positively impact countless lives. Yeah. This not only catalyze medical advancements, but also instills the ensuring that your privacy remains intact throughout. Yeah.
Very interesting. Igor, in this context then of privacy and security, and I think considering, as Artie was saying, just the vast sources of data now between clinical trials and wearables and the like, do you see some challenges or dynamics of how data and data science manages healthcare data?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to touch upon a few things that were already said and expand. So I think privacy and security have to be top of mind and have to be proactively addressed. I think it purely comes down to trust, patient trust with the healthcare system. I think by some estimates, it is an all-time low, especially after the COVID pandemic. I think we can be the whole industry cannot be in a reactive mode when there is a scandal or something. It has to be proactively addressed. And I think this is all part of moving more in a patient-centered and even more so in a human-centered direction, making healthcare more human-centered. So that's number one. Just to touch upon what Artie said, not only, I think, we get sometimes, sometimes we talk about all these advanced technologies like AI and blockchain, but like Artie said, the fundamental is quality, high quality data. And not only that, for many cases, even high quality data isn't enough. It has to be fit for purpose. And so what has been found, as far as at least the US is concerned, a lot of healthcare data that is in EHRs has a lot of quality issues. Physicians and other nurses, physicians, other clinicians are spending a lot of time on administrative tasks, filling healthcare records. In the US, the healthcare records are for a large part used in a large part used for administrative purposes. And so it is taking up a lot of time, a lot of effort from clinicians. And oftentimes that data isn't as high quality as we would like for secondary purposes like research or other. So I think we need to work on the fundamentals, improving the quality of the data, making sure that it's fit for purpose, and then leveraging it to improve healthcare and health outcomes. I think that's kind of my perspective. And we, like I said, we often get distracted by how AI will just amplify the noise that is in the data if the data is not quality. So I hate to say this, but garbage in, garbage out, and this is even more important in healthcare, where the implications are more important, right? We're talking about people's lives and quality of life.
Yeah, medications, what the right prescriptions are, making sure a surgical procedure is correct. And excuse me, Artie, are you noticing some of those data quality issues? Because I think you brought up some great points before. We have more data than before. We've got to make it all work together. And oh, by the way, there's got to be quality. So what are some of the strategies that you might see? And are there incentives or monetary incentivization around quality that we could consider from a tokenomics standpoint?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One, let's first address, why is there more data, right? No one really thinks about why, even though you all know the answer, the audience knows the answer. The answer is, we're not just talking about EMR data. We're not just talking about medical data. There's genome data, there's exome data, there's claims data, there's pharmacy data, like you mentioned, there's, medical device data, there's 500 million new users that have wearables, whether they're wearing a Garmin or an Apple Watch, and your Apple Watch doesn't talk to your old Garmin device. So if you're using one device for 10 years and you upgraded to just a new wearable because you got, a new present for your birthday or Christmas or whatever celebration, you have a data interoperability problem, even on a personal fitness level, right? And everyone pretty much counts their steps, on their phone, whether they have an Android phone or they have an iPhone. And there's, data being even taken from us from social determinants of health. We can actually predict what a population or community's health outcomes might be based off their zip code. If your zip code is 90210, which is Beverly Hills, you're going to have way better care and you're going to live longer than if your zip code is somewhere in rural outside Alabama, where the first hospital is 200 miles away. And so there's various reasons for that. So when we think about data, data itself has so many different meanings. And we've learned this at Seekster because we've been at the forefront of, pioneering a longitudinal health record so that you can take all these data silos together and put it actually on one graph. And in order to do that, you have to be able to standardize and harmonize every single ICD-9 and ICD-10 code, SNOMED, RX norm, and just a lot of what I call dirty engineering on the back end in order for you to actually see the, simplicity of data, which is, just a graph of, let's say, 10 years of your lab results, overlaid with, your steps superimposed. And so there's a lot that I think has not been talked about within the incentives, getting to your second point. And incentivizing goes towards, it's very different when you are an innovator and why you're incentivized to, collect own and share your data versus if you're a chronically ill patient, or, you know, most people, as I say, don't care about their health until they are sick. And so incentivizing, you know, populations for better healthcare, for better health premiums, for discounts on insurance or whatever that may be, I think that's where I think the industry has not figured it out yet. There's been some companies that have, you know, given certain things away for, you know, trade for that consented data. But it is very clear in clinical trials where we spend a lot of our time with Seekster, because I'm very incentivized to get a better drug and to live longer. And I want to be in that clinical trial. In exchange, I will actually share my consented data so that that trial can run better and come out with a drug faster and, you know, report better patient outcomes. And so it has to be that clear. But then when you put in, you know, blockchain and various different monetary types of incentivized types of, you know, options, I would say, you know, that can definitely change things. You know, are you going to pay someone for their data one day? We should be doing that. Is that happening today? It's not happening today because there's really not a marketplace. And for there to be a marketplace, there needs to be, you know, 100 different things. And we've thought about this for a very long time. It's just very complex to put that together.
I agree 100%. I think you brought up a good characterization around the clinical trials and the incentivization models in clinical trials around a pharmaceutical response versus the incentivization about just live healthier. And I'm going to pull that thread for a second, Stefan, and turn it back over to you. Are you noticing in the collection of individual health data and the way people manage their health data, if there are some directions, incentivizations, or socializations that are of benefit to the way people do things?
Yes, totally. And this question also touched on a little bit, question of monetization, but like the significance of healthcare data cannot be overstate, I'd say, in today's rapidly evolving medical landscape. And in terms of understanding data in health, it serves as a cornerstone of informed decision-making, research, and transformative innovations. So we keep this data from our users, we give them value, monetization, possibility to earn. And with this data, we go to the world, we present this data, and based on this data, big pharma companies, big business is creating innovations, is creating new drugs and building AI models. The revolutionary value lies in its potential to enhance diagnostics, of course, treatment methods, and ultimately elevate global healthcare outcomes to huge heights, I'd say, yes. And having health ID and filling the information in the health ecosystem, because nowadays it's quite difficult to motivate anyone to do something. So yeah, they care about health, they want to stay healthy, they want to stay young and live long life. But if we want to get this data from them, valuable data, we have to motivate them, because people are lazy, people don't want to do anything. We have to motivate them that filling the information, lifestyle information, health information, medical, every information, like we start from the date of birth and the name, you get benefits, along the line benefits, kind of passive income. So we like slightly go to monetization. That's our I'd say mechanics, how we work. So yeah, we get this data from people, we give them value, money, in terms like money, and like revolutionize healthcare system globally, I'd say.
Yeah, very interesting. And Igor, any thoughts in there with regards to this idea that maybe as we take ownership of our own data, we're more responsible for cleaning it up, and way tools come in to help us curate our own information as we choose to share it between parties.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue of data ownership is really important, right? I think already mentioned this, but again, I'm more familiar with the U.S. system, but in the U.S. system, the health data market is it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and very many articles have been written about this, books have been written about this, but I think for the most part, most people don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. And I can tell you that, I mean, I'm a physician. I've worked in the healthcare system, and even I didn't know what, prior to kind of going into industry in the data science space several years ago, I didn't know that hospitals are selling de-identified data to data brokers. I had no idea. So I think we need to start, as healthcare is moving into more to have patients be more empowered and be more in control over their health. I think this is a really important aspect. The other thing we need to talk about is, we've talked about the variety of data that are emerging, right? Compared to 20, 30 years ago, there are so many new streams of data, so many different types of data. And this also goes to the fact that I personally believe that the HIPAA regulations are wildly outdated. I believe the HIPAA came into being in 1996. Basically prior to the current version of the internet that we have. And at that time, there weren't as many data sources. And so, you were required to de-identify healthcare data by removing certain identifiers. There were something like 18 patient health identifiers that if you de-identify, that you remove from the data, then you could pretty much do whatever you want with the data because it was kind of low risk. I don't think that is the case anymore. There have been studies from MIT and other institutions that show that using the variety of data that we have today, even if the data is de-identified according to the old standards, you could still re-identify individuals with something like 98 or 99% accuracy based on just a handful of other identifiers from the data. And so that is, I think, a serious concern that I think we need to address proactively. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of, again, I strongly believe that data is critical for improving healthcare and health outcomes, but I think we need to do it ethically and responsibly.
Absolutely. And swinging it back around, Artie, I'll give you the last 2 minutes and we'll conclude for our excellent discussion today.
Yeah, look, I think Igor brings up something really interesting. And, I was talking about the different data sources. He mentioned different data streams. And in 2023, which we're knocking on the door of 2024, everything's changing so quickly. Technology and healthcare at the intersection of together are transforming digital technologies faster than we ever really imagined. And I think we've talked in the last 30, 40 minutes on this panel about privacy of data, transparency of data, interoperability, policy, GDPR for being in Europe, obviously, HIPAA in the United States. Technology is moving way faster than policy. And so someone needs to sit down at the table and draft new laws and regulations around, what is that portability, the P in HIPAA. And I think we never really thought about that when HIPAA was drafted in the late 90s because the technology wasn't there. The EMR systems weren't even there. AWS cloud that, hosts a bunch of this data did not exist. So again, the data storage itself did not exist even. And we were dealing with paper records, and then people would fax those paper records to the specialists from the providers from hospital to hospital after you fill out a form, or you would get all your data once technology hit in 1999 on a DVD or a CD-ROM, if you remember. And, you would have to pay $50 to $150 for your own data. You should never have to pay to get your own data. You should own it by 100%. It's your data. And I think it goes back to the most important thing that we discussed on this call is that data ownership is the foundation of really making health data medicine. And when patients own their data, magic happens. It doesn't matter what use case we're talking about.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. And I think thematically that ties up some of what we've talked about so far with Stefan talking about the architecture and the concepts of patients owning their own data, the concepts and challenges of the quality of the data for individuals to own, constituting their provenance, and the fact that certainly for the US, the underpinning regulations that support being able to do that need to be updated. So regulations and policy moving into the 21st century, the incentivizations for data management on the individual being updated, and then lastly, of course, bringing these technologies to bear. So I want to take the opportunity to thank each of you, and thank you very much for participating today. Thank you for the audience here at Conv2X, and look forward to being able to follow up with you virtually and in person, and hope that the rest of the symposium and conference goes well for you as well. Thank you very much.
Good to be here.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.